Let's go across the channel. Let's return to the UK in the aftermath of the resignation of Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff to Sir Keir Starmer, many saying the most powerful unelected official around him. Let's get the view of Denis MacShane, former Minister for Europe under Tony Blair, 2005 to 2007. I'm aware of crisis management as well. Denis, convicted of false accounting in 2012, spent 6 months in prison for it for £12,900 expenses scandal. Let me ask you, Denis, you've been involved in crisis management. How would you compare this crisis right now for Keir Starmer?
Well, firstly, I'd hope the media would tell the truth. I spent a few weeks in prison because I wrote a book exposing anti-Semitism in the British National Party, a fascist party here in Britain. And one of its people, a former retired police officer, detective from Scotland Yard, who was an extreme right-wing anti-Semite, sent in an official complaint. And to my surprise, this was referred for prosecution. No other person was treated that way. And in fact, at the time, only Labour MPs were treated. Tory MPs who claimed fiddled far more were let off by the Director of Public Prosecutions, who didn't prosecute them. No, that's just the facts. Now, on this, very simply, it's got nothing to do with that episode that many people are involved. I wrote a book about it. It's rather silly to bring it up, if I may say so. The point is that Morgan McSweeney is the last person between Keir Starmer and his rendezvous with destiny. The difficulty for Sir Keir is that, unlike, say, when Tony Blair became Prime Minister, he was surrounded by some of the smartest communicators, policy shapers in foreign policy, domestic policy, party fixing that Britain had ever seen in its political system. Mr. McSweeney is from Ireland, and he's basically known for removing left-wing Labour candidates or MPs that some of the leadership didn't like. He doesn't know anything about foreign policy, about domestic policy, about what's moving the voters, and so he was the wrong person in the wrong job at the wrong time. And it's another example of what everybody's now accepting, that Sir Keir Starmer has got many excellent qualities as a human rights lawyer, but being a top flight politician isn't one of them. If I may make a comparison to France with President Macron, who's a brilliant technocrat, very good foreign leadership, but he doesn't know how politics works inside his own country. So he's managed to get now a government that can't get any laws through the National Assembly. Something similar is happening here.
I mention it not to offend you, Denis MacShane, but just to provide context. I think I'm right in saying that you did spend some time in prison. I think just to make sure for the record, it was 19 expenses. It was around £12,900, I believe, that you admitted submitting fake receipts for. That you talk. That's the context that I give, simply to state why you're also aware of crisis. But tell me if you dispute that.
Well, if you really want to talk about me, all that referred to me traveling around Europe to effect political contacts on behalf of the government and Parliament. That was my expertise. Any British MP can go to any corner of the British Isles and it's paid for by Parliament. I just kind of stupidly assumed I could make claims like that. I was trained to claim expenses by the BBC, and there I learned about a lot of the dirty tricks. If you really want to have a discussion about journalism, ethics, anti-Semitism in Britain, and a very enjoyable time I spent. It was a matter of weeks, so we're very quickly. It wasn't. I can't even remember what the sentence was. It was less than 6 months. Maybe it was 6 months. But of that, you spend, I don't know, 1/3 actually behind bars. The rest of it's on a tab. You can ask Nicolas Sarkozy. I suppose he has to wear a tab, and ask Madame Le Pen, who of course is not being allowed possibly to run for elected office in France because she stole €4 million from, or embezzled €4 million from the European Parliament, not the money I just spent on Eurostar and EasyJet flights around Europe working on politics on behalf of my party and government.
She denies that. That case continues. But Denis, the contrast that I make is, in the aftermath of that, I'll be interested to know what happens to Morgan McSweeney now. Does he get shunned by the party? The comparison is what happened to you leaving that party, and comparisons are made to actually what becomes of his legacy.
Well, he's not, look, Morgan McSweeney has been let go because he gave some advice to the Prime Minister that's proved to be very, very wrong. And it's the oldest saying in the Vatican, in the Imperial Rome, when in doubt, boot out the advisors or the advisor. So he's now being sacrificed, but the decision remains with the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. The decision also remained with previous prime ministers like Gordon Brown and Tony Blair, who brought back Peter Mandelson after he had to leave public office for sums of £300,000. And I don't want to go into the details of all of this. And it's about judgment and the fact that the Prime Minister, unfortunately, as I say, a very distinguished human rights lawyer record, but no experience in the dirty business of being an effective politician, which in every country requires a long apprenticeship, years, decades of learning how politics works, what the public will accept, what it won't accept. And he started off by accepting free gifts of suits worth £4,000, a bit like Francois Fillon. Some of you may remember the French Prime Minister who got into trouble over that. And then he started changing allowances that had previously been decided by Labour, which took away money from poor people to be able to heat themselves during very cold winters. And other mistakes, he's done U-turns. And it's just the sense of a prime minister who is not really on top fully of his job. That's the feeling, and Labour MPs are looking at each other. I've talked to many, they're friends, and they all are thinking secretly, some maybe out loud, will I keep my seat if we keep Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister? And a lot of them are now, there's no final decision yet. There's a couple of big election periods coming up in British political life. They're saying, well, if it goes on like this, that's me out of a job. So maybe it'd be better if Sir Keir, who's got a very good, handsome pension, is a very wealthy man, retires after a very distinguished career. He's in his 60s. And somebody else who maybe knows a bit more about how to do politics takes over.
Dennis, in briefly, one word answer on this. Has Keir Starmer got legs left to run? Will he be still in power in 2 months' time?
Well, I was asked with a colleague the other day on the BBC, to use the English expression, is Sir Keir Starmer toast? My colleague, a very distinguished political writer, book writer, really knows the Labour Party, said yes. I said, I'm not sure. But he's definitely in the toaster. Wait for a by-election, a very important by-election, election partielle in French, that we're going to have here in Manchester in 2.5 weeks' time. If Labour holds that, that's a relief. But then the big one is on the 7th of May. Every town, every city in Britain elects a new council, and if Labour loses that.
Denis, good to talk to you tonight. Denis MacShane, thank you, former Labour Europe Minister. Stay with us on Worldview. We'll be back in just a moment.